You know, there's something that nobody really tells you before you move overseas. Not YouTube videos, not retirement channels, not the Facebook expat groups that talk about cheap beers and beautiful sunsets. And honestly, most people living it don't even admit it to themselves right away. Because at first, moving abroad feels incredible. You land in the Philippines and all of a sudden, life feels a little bit lighter. The pressure drops. Your money stretches further. People smile at you. You wake up, realize you're not scraping ice off your windshield anymore, and in the middle of January, you're sitting outside having breakfast in your shorts. And for a while, it feels like you figured out something that nobody else has. But then slowly, something starts creeping in. And it usually happens so gradually at first, they don't even seem to realize that it's happening. Until one day they do, and that thing is called loneliness. Yeah, not the dramatic movie kind, you know, sitting alone in a room at the window when it's raining and you're crying. Not like that. I mean the quiet kind. The kind that settles into your life without even making a sound. I mean the kind that sneaks up on people after the honeymoon fades away. And the weird thing is you could be surrounded by people and still feel it. And that's the part that nobody prepares you for, because most content from expats, they talk about the money, or women, or visas, or condos, or where to get the best burger in Cebu. Very few people talk honestly about what emotionally happens after you leave your old life behind. And for some people, that becomes the hardest part of all. And a lot of men especially move abroad thinking that they're leaving the loneliness behind. And in the beginning, it feels true. Everything is new. You feel excited again. You're stimulated constantly. New food, new sounds, new culture, maybe even a new relationship. And that novelty carries people for a long time, maybe 6 months, a year, sometimes 2. But eventually, normal life returns. Because, you know, no matter where you move, your brain follows you. And eventually the excitement becomes routine. Same road, same coffee shop, same stores, same small conversations, the same nights sitting at home scrolling YouTube. And then something starts to happen. You start realizing how far away your old life actually is. Not physically, emotionally. Your old friends stop calling as much. Your family continues life without you. Your kids grow older. People back home move on. The inside jokes happen without you. Birthdays happen without you. Barbecues happen without you. Somebody gets sick. Someone passes away. And you realize you're not really part of that world anymore. You're watching it from the outside now. You're watching it like an observer. And that feeling could hit people hard, especially older expats. Because when you move abroad later in life, you're not just changing countries. You're slowly leaving your old life behind. Back home, you knew who you were. You knew how things worked. You understood the culture without thinking. You understood sarcasm. Humor, references, social cues. You knew how to walk into a room and belong there naturally. Then you move overseas and suddenly you become the foreigner. All the time. Even after years, you're still the foreigner. And a lot of people underestimate how mentally exhausting that can be, even in friendly places. Especially in smaller provinces when you may be the only foreigner around. Now, don't misunderstand me. This isn't one of those don't move abroad videos. Not at all. A lot of people are happier here. A lot of people genuinely improve their lives. They reconnect with themselves like it wasn't possible back home. But there's also a side to this life that gets edited out of most videos. Like the quiet hours, the empty afternoons, the feelings of emotional drift. And you especially notice it after the big excitement fades. I've noticed something interesting over the years. The expats that struggle emotionally over the years usually aren't the poorest ones. They're the ones that moved here expecting a constant emotional high. They thought changing countries would permanently change how they felt inside. And for a while, it does help, until normal life catches up again. Because eventually your problems unpack themselves too. That loneliness you had back home, sometimes it follows you. That depression, that boredom, that uncertainty. Sometimes it's still waiting for you after all that excitement settles down. Just now, it's sitting in a tropical country. And this is something that most people wouldn't expect. You can still live in paradise, but still feel emotionally lost. I know that sounds ridiculous until you actually see it happen. And once you've been around enough expats, you start seeing patterns. Some guys slowly isolate themselves. Their whole world becomes their apartment, their girlfriend, one restaurant, and YouTube. It happens day after day, week after week, and at first, they don't notice it. And it's because life feels easy, comfortable. But over time, the world gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And then one day they wake up and realize they barely talk to anyone anymore. Especially people who truly understand them deeply. That's another thing that people underestimate. I mean, language matters emotionally, even if your partner speaks English. Even if people are kind, there's still a difference between communication and connection. You start to miss shared history. You start to miss people who knew you before all of this. And sometimes you don't even realize you miss it until years later. And that happens especially during difficult moments. Illness, stress, loss, a bad relationship. Maybe financial problems. And that's the moment where distance suddenly feels pretty real. And aging abroad, that changes things too. Nobody likes talking about that part, but it's true. Moving abroad when you're 28 is completely different than moving abroad when you're 62. At 28, life is open-ended. It feels exciting. At 62, people start thinking about lots of different other things. Mobility, health, who's going to help them someday? What happens if something goes wrong? What happens if the relationship ends? What happens if you can't travel as easy anymore? Those start to get louder in your head. And I think a lot of expats secretly wrestle with that more than they would like to admit, or if they will even admit it, especially online. It's always the social media creates the pressure to always look happy. You notice that a lot in expat groups. Everybody posts the beach, dinner, the smiling selfie, the sunset. Nobody's going to post, I haven't had a real conversation in weeks. It happens. Nobody posts, I miss my daughter. Nobody posts, I don't know where I belong anymore. But those feelings exist and a lot more than people realize. And honestly, some people cope with it better than others. Hey, don't forget the 10 non-negotiable rules. They're in the description. They're absolutely free. They're a must-have if you're planning on making a move to the Philippines. The people that seem happiest long-term are the ones that build structure, and that's the key word, structure. I'm not talking endless vacation mode, because that almost never works forever. The happiest long-term expats, they usually create routine, community, purpose, friendships, projects, and stability. They build an actual life, not just an escape, and that makes a huge difference, because eventually the fantasy wears off, and what's left is real life. And if you don't build something meaningful under the fantasy, loneliness will start filling those empty spaces. Thank you again, Mr. Rooster. He agrees, evidently. Look, now I'm just having conversations with roosters. There's also another side that nobody talks about. Guilt. A lot of older expats quietly feel guilt. Missing grandkids growing up, missing family events, not being there when parents age, not being around when emergencies happen. Technology helps, but only so much. A video call just isn't the same as being there. Everybody knows that. And sometimes the emotional distance grows so slowly, you don't even realize it until years have passed. Then somebody suddenly says, man, it's been 5 years. You go, 5 years? That hits people hard sometimes, especially during holidays. Holidays abroad can feel strange. Even good holidays. You don't feel like traditions are fully yours anymore. You're kind of in between worlds, not fully here emotionally and not fully back home either. And that feeling of existing between two lives is difficult to explain unless you've actually lived it. And that's why some expats become restless. They keep moving. Different cities, different islands, different countries. It's like that dopamine, always chasing the feeling you had during the beginning. The first rush, the excitement, the freedom. But eventually, they discover something uncomfortable. The location wasn't the entire issue. A lot of it comes from inside. And that realization can either destroy somebody emotionally or mature them. Because the healthiest expats stop treating life abroad like an endless vacation. You got to start treating it like real life. And that shift matters a lot. And I said shift, not the people that do well long-term stop chasing the dopamine constantly. They try to stop reinventing themselves every 6 months. They try and stop outrunning aging. They stop living life permanently in fantasy mode. And instead, they start building smaller, quieter things. Simple habits, purpose, community. You have to find a reason for living aside from cheap living. That's what seems to create emotional stability long-term. And honestly, I think that's something that most people considering moving abroad need to hear. Because YouTube can accidentally sell a fantasy sometimes. Especially in Southeast Asia content, everything looks exciting online. The beach shots, the drone footage, the nightlife, the smiling couples, the low prices. But cameras, they rarely capture the loneliness, don't they? You can't really film emotional drift. And you can't really film homesickness. You can't film the feeling of sitting alone at night, wondering where you actually belong. Those moments don't make good thumbnails, but they're real. I personally think pretending they don't exist actually hurt people, especially retirees, because retiring itself already changes people's identity. A lot of men spent 40 years being the provider, the worker, the boss, the routine, and suddenly, all of that stops. And if you combine retirement with moving overseas all at the same time, that's a massive identity shift at once. New country, new culture, new routines, new relationships, new financial realities, new social structure. And people are shocked when emotional confusion appears after all that? Honestly, it'd be weird if it didn't. Human beings aren't designed to completely disconnect with familiarity overnight without emotional consequences. But yet a lot of people think they can, because online content often makes it look easy. Sell the house, move to paradise. Problem solved. Except life, it's a little more complicated than that. Some people absolutely thrive abroad. Most people fall somewhere in the middle. And the ones that seem happiest long-term, they usually accept something important. No country fixes your inner life permanently. Not America, not Thailand, not the Philippines, not anywhere. Location can improve quality of life, absolutely. It can reduce stress, it can create freedom, it can create opportunity. But eventually, you still need to build emotional stability inside your actual life. And I think that's the conversation that more people should honestly have, especially for older men thinking about retirement abroad. Ask yourself, what kind of life am I actually building? Not just, what am I escaping from? That's actually a different question. Because if your plan is leave the West and everything is magically going to change and be awesome, you're eventually going to hit a wall emotionally. Maybe not immediately, maybe not for years, but eventually normal life returns. It always does. And when it does, what's underneath everything is what matters. Your mindset, your purpose, your relationships, your emotional health, your ability to create community. Those things matter far more long-term than beaches and cheap rent. And honestly, I think a lot of people know that already. That's why a video like this resonates. Because a lot of people are feeling these emotions already. There's just not a lot of people out there saying it. You don't hear it often. And maybe that's the reason that these conversations matter. It's not to discourage anybody from moving abroad, but to prepare yourself realistically. Because we all know realistic expectations create stronger outcomes. And if you can understand these emotional realities before moving, you've got a much better chance of building a stable life overseas instead of just chasing temporary escape. And that's the difference. One's running away, the other's building something sustainable. Very different things. The Philippines can absolutely give some people a better life. I've seen it. People become healthier here, calmer, less stressed, more financially secure, more emotionally present. But I've also seen people slowly disappear into isolation because they never built a real foundation underneath the dream. And nobody warned them that could happen. And that's the part that people need to hear more often. Not fear, not fantasy, just honesty. Because moving abroad doesn't erase human needs. Connection still matters. Purpose still matters. Community still matters. And no amount of palm trees replaces those things forever. We're about to reach 10,000 subscribers, and I appreciate everybody that has supported the channel. Always try to keep it real. If there's anything that you'd like us to cover here, feel free to shoot us an email, fishtankmedia.global@gmail.com. Always happy to hear from you. If you want to talk one-on-one, you can reach me at that email address as well. Do check out this video. I think you'll like this one also, and this one. And always remember, be excellent to each other. This is never about the Philippines. It's about how you arrive when you get here. We'll see you in the next video.